Hello and welcome to the Oversteer podcast. It's the third English speaking episode for the show, which is predominantly Greek, but sometimes if we have the opportunity to have an English speaking guest, it's our pleasure. This week, this Tuesday, not Monday as per usual, but it's for a very good reason that it is Tuesday. We have a MotoGP guest, two wheels guest, Lewis Duncan, international editor for Autosport, MotoGP journalist. Lewis, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Lewis, we haven't talked much, but we've been in a couple of debriefs in various teams together.
Yeah, this wonderful world of Zoom that we live on right now.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Of course, the whole episode that you're listening right now is recorded pretty remotely. Even without the coronavirus, it would be really difficult for me to travel or for him to travel here in Greece. So, if you are an avid, and I'm talking to the listeners right now, if you are an avid Oversteer listener, I'm sure there are some of you that are that crazy. We really talk about F1. We may brush over some MotoGP or WRC stuff, but I believe this MotoGP season has been pretty interesting. I've been following Luis's work in the autosport.com predominantly because I don't live in England or the UK to have the magazine at my disposal, and I believe his work is phenomenal, and that's how I got to invite him, and he accepted, and I'm very thankful for that. So, Luis, how would you describe these first six Grand Prix? Because it's been a pretty weird season so far.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for those kind words. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a crazy kind of start to this season. I don't really know how to analyze it because we didn't have a very long preseason. We only had 5 days of testing this year because of coronavirus, and all of that testing was confined to Qatar. And then we had the first two races in Qatar, which of course Yamaha won. But it was very hard to tell whether the Yamaha had really taken the step forward that it looked like they had done. But of course, we went to Portugal and Fabio Quartararo was phenomenal. We went to Jerez, and let's be honest, Fabio Quartararo should have won at Jerez had it not been for an arm pump issue. Had it not been for the rain at Le Mans, that was looking like it was going to be Fabio Quartararo's Grand Prix. So, despite what we saw in Qatar, it really does look like this Yamaha package, this 2021 Yamaha package, and particularly in the hands of Fabio Quartararo, it is the strongest sort of combination on the grid right now. Fabio has been in exceptional form, of course, winner of the Italian Grand Prix at the weekend just there, and at a circuit we didn't expect the Yamaha to go so well on. Of course, Pecco Bagnaia crashed, but there was no other real challenge for Fabio that weekend. So everything looks like it's pointing towards being Fabio's championship at this very early stage. But of course, there's many races still to come.
It's been a pretty, I believe, surprising start because we knew that Yamaha was pretty good at everything last season, but Suzuki had a better race bike. Joan Mir was pretty I mean he was pretty lucky in some situations. In other situations he was at the right place in the right time. He got a win as well, so he can feel in our journalistic eyes as a legitimate champion. But Yamaha was pretty fast last year too. Now it's phenomenal, the fact that Fabio himself is pretty above the rest, not only of the Ducatis, maybe the Jack Millers of this world and Pecco Bagnaia and Jean Zarco and stuff. He's pretty far from Maverick Vinales, who it was his team, and it's the new guy at least in the Monster Energy Yamaha, not Yamaha in general, and he just obliterates the guy. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, you're right. The Yamaha was quick last year, but the biggest problem Yamaha had with with the 2020 bike, of course, Franco Morbidelli on the 2019 bike was pretty consistent. The problem they had was a consistency issue. Fabio would be quick one weekend and then they would be nowhere the next weekend, and Maverick was very much the same. Fabio worked a lot on himself mentally over the winter, and Yamaha has definitely brought a better bike, but it's hard to judge right now just where the biggest improvement has come from, if it's Fabio, if it's the bike, because like you say, Dimitris, it's Maverick hasn't been as strong as he was on that first night of the championship in Qatar. Of course, Valentino Rossi on the other factory Yamaha hasn't had good results. And Vinales' issues are very typical of what we saw last year, quick one weekend. And then as the weekends go on, he struggles, flashes of speed here, then he struggles in the races. It is strange. It's hard to understand, because we know how quick a rider Maverick is. Why he's not able to put it together it's troubling, and it's not great for him, the fact that Fabio has come into the factory team and, like you say, has almost made it his own team this year with the amount of good performances, consistently good performances he's put in this season.
Obviously, I mean, Fabio is a pretty confident guy, and if you're going to ride motorcycles in 300 kilometers per hour, you gotta be somehow confident and cocky in some way, because it's pretty weird. He's French, but he's pretty Mediterranean. I'm from Greece, so I should know. He has that style, that character, that personality, that some people even compare him with Jorge Lorenzo. I don't know if that's fair to him, because Jorge was pretty proven even before he went on the MotoGP bikes.
Yeah, I guess that stems from Fabio spent a lot of time in Spain. He's from a very young age, I think he moved.
Yep.
I think he's lived in Spain for a long time, and I guess that's where that comes from. I think the Lorenzo comparison is interesting. We haven't seen someone dominate on a Yamaha since Lorenzo, and a lot of the performances that Fabio has put in on this bike this year, I would say, were very much like Jorge Lorenzo. Mm-hmm. Particularly what we saw in Portugal. That was a very Lorenzo ride, and Mugello especially. That was shades of Lorenzo at his very best. But the riding styles, I'm not sure if the riding styles are similar as such. Lorenzo was very smooth. This Yamaha, you can't ride it so smooth. This is something that both Maverick and particularly Fabio has talked about a lot this year, that you need to ride it. The myth that the Yamaha is an easy bike no longer applies. This Yamaha is a difficult bike. You need to really be quite aggressive with it. It's not as difficult as, say, a Honda or a Ducati.
Yeah.
But you need to muscle it a bit more, and that just seems to suit Fabio's style a lot more. He's able to hustle that bike, and we saw that in 2019. He was very suited to how he understood what the Yamaha needed. And the 2020 bike didn't really give him the feelings that he had in 2019. Mm-hmm. This 2021 bike has given him those feelings again, and you can see how, again, he's doing what the bike needs, and he understands what the bike needs. And that's interesting, because all the circuits we've gone to so far have been really different. Qatar, Jerez, Portimao, Le Mans, Mugello, all very different circuits, all very different characteristics. Some are corner speed circuits, some are straight line speed circuits where we know the Yamaha struggles. But Fabio has been strong at all of them, and he's been strong in all conditions as well. He wasn't quick in the wet last year, but we saw at Le Mans, he got a podium. So the bike has come together, but more importantly, Fabio has really come together, and he's justifying the decision that Yamaha made to promote him to the factory team.
On the fact that you said that Yamaha is not an easy bike anymore, the myth and all that. I think MotoGP is not doesn't have an easy bike anymore. Maybe
Yeah.
the Michelin tires that require a specific adjustment on the riding styles of many different riders. I believe almost all of them now, even if they didn't want to, they use the rear brake a lot more.
Hmm.
It's very weird because I remember a time maybe on the yesteryears, but maybe in the Bridgestone era, the smooth riding style was preferred. The Yamaha was an easy bike. You could win in a Yamaha even if you were Ben Spies. No offense, but
Yeah.
Ben Spies was
Yeah.
no Lorenzo Rossi. But and we said Ducati. Oh my God, you can't ride that thing. It's an Italian stallion. Or Honda with Casey Stoner or Danny Pedrosa before Mark came along. So maybe Fabio is not a new Jorge Lorenzo. Maybe Fabio is not is a new Marc Marquez in the fact that he's young, confident, and he knows how to ride fast and aggressively. Maybe that's another vantage point you can look at it.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's what we're seeing with Fabio. Fabio is an interesting character because he came into the Grand Prix Championship in 2015 with a lot of hype behind him. He dominated the Spanish Championship, and everyone thought, "Oh, here we go, the next Marc Marquez." And then it didn't happen. He struggled a lot in Moto2 and Moto3, and a large part of that was because he didn't know. He was a 15-year-old kid, and he didn't know how to handle pressure. That's been a key thing for Fabio over the past this year, especially is working with a sports psychologist and working through how to handle pressure. And you're right, it has echoes of Marc Marquez. Marquez is very much he's quite a mentally resilient character, I think would be fair to say. And their approach is quite similar, I think. Fabio kind of, you get the impression from Fabio that racing to him is not a job, it's his life, it's his passion. And it's the same with Marc. You listen to the way Marc talks about racing, it's almost a hobby,
Yeah.
And you compare that to Jorge Lorenzo, who always kind of saw this as a job. He loved winning, he loved being successful, but he didn't. He wasn't necessarily that same sort of love for racing that the likes of Marc and Fabio do. I guess you could argue that Fabio is maybe like Marc. Or you could look at Fabio as being, for the next 10, 15 years, Fabio is now the model MotoGP rider. The new riders that will come in, it might end up being like Fabio. We don't know. But what's evident is that Fabio is a ridiculously talented rider, and we're now properly seeing the potential that a lot of people saw in him before, but maybe the public didn't see.
Yeah.
Your point about the Bridgestone tyres is very interesting as well. I mean, ever since the change to the Michelin tyres, Yamaha has struggled a lot. The Bridgestone tyres were very much, you needed to be aggressive on the front end. And that was something that Jorge Lorenzo was brilliant at. He could ride the front of that tyre.
Yeah.
And, he was so smooth. He almost looked slow. That's how brilliant Lorenzo was.
Sometimes I can see that on Fabio too, but he's not slow. He's pretty aggressive, but he makes it look like he's methodical about it,
Yeah, you can see, where you really see Fabio being aggressive is in qualifying, when he's able to pull out those one laps. He's really, really good at that. But the Yamaha has struggled in this Michelin era, and this is something Rossi spoke about. In 2004, 2005, when they had the Michelin tyres, the Yamaha was strong, but MotoGP was a different championship back then. This new era that we live in with the Michelin tyres and the spec electronics, there are less things you can do to find a big advantage. So it's no longer, from Yamaha's point of view, you look back to 2014, 2013, it was only Yamaha and Honda winning Grand Prix. Now there were quite special guys on those bikes. You had Lorenzo on the bike, you had Rossi on the bike. At Honda, you had Stoner, like you mentioned. You had a completely different style to anyone. You had Danny Pedrosa, who had a completely different style to anyone.
Yeah.
Then Marquez comes along, who has a completely different style to anyone. You had these kind of aliens on these bikes, and there was. Now though, we've got the championship is so close. It's so tight that everyone needs to find the tiniest of margins to go quick. And there's no great big advantage anymore. It's, yes, the Ducati has top speed, but that doesn't mean it can win every Grand Prix. The Yamaha is good in the corners, but it doesn't mean it can win. So is the Suzuki, but it doesn't mean you can win in every Grand Prix because of that. There's so many, you need to be on top of things in qualifying. You need to make sure that your tire conservation is excellent,
which is pretty important nowadays.
Yeah, it's fine margins now in MotoGP. So I think when we see someone struggle, it looks worse than maybe it is because everything's so close. If you have a bad day now, you're not going to finish 4th or 5th. You're going to finish 10th or 11th.
Or you fall like Alex Rins.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is pretty bad because you lose many points. That's a point of contention. Stop crashing. But if you stop crashing, then that means you have to go slow. If you go slow, you don't show the potential of the bike. It's a vicious cycle sometimes. You try to outride the slump sometimes. You have to.
That is the perfect way of putting it. It's a vicious cycle. It's everyone has to be absolutely on the limit all the time, and that's why MotoGP is so brilliant right now because everyone's so close, everyone's so competitive. You come into a race weekend, and any one of 10 guys minimum can win a Grand Prix. It's it's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal. And speaking of guys that can win races, Pecco Bagnaia and Jack Miller are pretty strong this year. I mean, I don't discredit Johann Zarco for his work and the fact that 2 years ago he was at the lowest point I have ever seen a rider be. KTM and the failed marriage that was, and all these, the fact that multiple accounts of people saying, "Oh my God, the guy cannot do it anymore, and he has to stop, and maybe he doesn't have it. Oh, he's getting older and all that stuff." And Pete Byrer clearly couldn't make amends with him at some point. They had to break up. I'm sorry, and all that stuff. But I believe Zarco. Maybe it's my feeling that eventually, because it's not the Ducati Corse team, it's the Pramac team, maybe at some point during the seasons he will fall behind from these guys. Pecco was ahead of him, and he lost it on the second lap yesterday, and he's now at 79 points and not maybe 80 something if he would finish the race, or 90 something. But my point being, the fact that Ducati is so strong with 3 of its 4 riders, unfortunately Jorge has lost and will lose some races, is pretty, I don't know, surprising to my eyes, because Ducati, as you said, is strong in the straights, fastest bike. If you have to do a drag race, maybe, but then again, it's a beast, and these 3 guys tamed it.
Yeah, I get Ducati's another team this year that has taken quite a big step forward with their bike. It looks like it's a much more friendly package than it has been over the past few years. But Ducati at the start of 2020, they knew they needed a fresh perspective. I think the relationship with Dovizioso soured. Petrucci was never going to have 2021 on the Ducati. It was never going to happen. And, Jack Miller and Pecco Bagnaia last year, well, the factory riders struggled on the new Michelin tyre. Miller and Bagnaia were quick, so were Zarco on occasion. And Ducati saw that they needed a fresh perspective, and I think that's been good for them because they've got these young guys coming in now who ride the bike differently. Pecco rides really quite differently from all the other Ducati riders. And what you're seeing, I think, is this sort of youthful, it's youthful rejuvenation, I guess you could say, for Ducati, that there's more energy in the box now. You see that. You saw that when Miller won his Grand Prix, the celebrations there. And Bagnaia is a great rider. We know that, and he's won a lot of new fans this year. I think with the way he's approached things. Sunday's race was difficult, but I think honestly he was more troubled by what happened to Jason DePasquier than anything. But I don't think it's surprising as such. It's just, we saw last year that the Pramac boys tended to be a lot better than the factory boys, and we're just sort of seeing that next step. But Ducati has also taken a step with the bike, so everything's just coming together a bit better. Jack Miller was under pressure at the start of the season. His results weren't great, and rightfully he was under pressure, but he bounced back brilliantly. Pecco's been strong all year, third, second in Qatar, Portugal, and Jerez.
His first DNF.
His first DNF was at Mugello. And I mean, that Mugello race was the first race that Ducati hasn't had a podium this year, so their consistency has been up there. And like you say with Zarco, I don't know if he will fall behind the factory riders. He's got the factory support from Ducati, and he's in a good surrounding at Pramac. There's not as much pressure on him as there would be at a factory team. So I think that could be quite crucial to Zarco's chances. But he does need to... Zarco, he needs to win a Grand Prix this season. So does Pecco. But Zarco especially needs to win a Grand Prix because he's been in the championship a few years now and he's threatened it a few times, but he's just not quite got there. But I believe if Zarco does win a Grand Prix, he's one of these guys who will start consistently fighting for Grand Prix wins because let's not forget he's a double world champion in Moto2.
Of course. No, yeah, of course. I don't discredit him. It's a fine line. I believe someone has to give in. Someone has to say, okay, I can't follow the other guys, because if all four of them, say the four guys that are now in front, Fabio, Joan, Pecco, and Jack, go flat out till the end, it's gonna be the best championship we have ever seen. But I don't think we are that fortunate or that lucky that we're gonna see that. So in my mind, maybe because I'm an F1 guy and I've been used to being on a one horse or two horse ride, and I can't fathom the fact that we may have four riders, I believe one of them will have to go a bit behind and maybe lose his step a few times. Pecco gave in first, of course, with his DNF, but Joan had the DNF as well. Jack had the DNF as well, so maybe it's Fabio's time sometime in the future. Of course, one DNF you will always have in a season. If you go perfect, you're going to be a champion, I believe. But, sometimes, I believe, I say Joan may be the weak link if you want, because, he's in a Pramac Ducati, which is a factory Ducati. Of course, no one says otherwise, but, maybe the fact that he is on a Pramac, maybe, I don't know, in his mind it will be like, okay, if I don't have a good race this weekend, it's fine. One bad race may make him fall in fourth place. Pecco and Jack overtake him. Jack is a killer. He's a killer. He knows how to take things by the throat and absolutely bash you with his authority and the fact that he's so dominant when he wants, and not when he only when he feels like he has the slightest of chances. He really is a shark. And Pecco has shown that he's really fast. The win, I believe, Pecco has to win more than Zarco because Pecco is an Italian in an Italian bike. People are sentimental about it. Italians, I know Italian is pretty good.
It's. I think you're right there. I think. I guess there was pressure on Pecco this weekend to win his first race on home soil.
Yeah.
But I think Pecco is smart enough to not put that pressure on himself. And that's ultimately what's going to win him. Win him a world championship one day if he can keep up his good form. I think it seems to me that it's really a matter of time before Pecco wins, rather than if he might win this season. I think
Yeah.
we will see Pecco win a race this season. We could see him win multiple races. Of course, we've got 2 races in Austria this year, so that's obviously perfect for Ducati to try and for Pecco to try and do that. But we've got good circuits coming up. Barcelona is good for Ducati. And Assen has been okay for Ducati in recent years. So yeah,
There are some
see,
places.
Yeah, I see a win for Pecco coming this season.
I'll jump a few places, and by a few I mean maybe 10, no, 14. Oh my God, Mark, where are you? Marc Marquez. It's been, if someone, if someone wants MotoGP right now, I mean, he hasn't seen MotoGP since I don't know, uh, say an old rider, maybe the Jorge Lorenzo experience or the Valentino, maybe 2014 and 2013.
Yeah.
And he left MotoGP before Mark came. And he was like, no, I don't watch any MotoGP anymore. And he picks it up where he left it in 2012 maybe, and he sees a Marc Marquez guy riding for the Repsol Honda. He's like, what the slouch? What does he do there? That Paul Espargaro guy absolutely annihilates him every weekend. It's pretty weird seeing Mark that far.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange, but it's Mark's come back from a long period of injury. He missed all of the 2020 season.
Yeah.
And I guess there was an expectation that when he came back this year that he would be quick straight away. But what we're seeing is that the severity of the injury that he suffered is a lot bigger than, and certainly the recovery job has been a lot bigger than I think even he anticipated. His right arm now, the bone has healed fully. His arm is fine. The biggest problem Mark has now is his right shoulder. He just doesn't have strength in it. He doesn't have power in it. And you need to be pretty strong to wrestle around a MotoGP bike, not least a Honda MotoGP bike. And Mark's these past circuits have not been easy in terms of physicality. Portimao was a really tough place for Mark to come back. Jerez was a difficult weekend for him because it's all right-hand corners. Le Mans wasn't so bad, but again, a lot of right-hand corners at Le Mans, so that in the dry that was a problem for him. And of course, Mugello, a lot of right-hand corners. So he's not had an easy time of things. But the fact that he was 7th on his first race back after 9 months, the fact that he was 9th in Spain, who knows what he would have done at Le Mans had he not crashed. It's the old Mark is still there. It's just taking a lot longer than I think anyone realised, and especially Mark realised. So it's going to take a lot of time for him. I think the race coming up to watch for Mark, Germany, if the German Grand Prix goes ahead, which hopefully it does, but you never know in this crazy time. But of course, the Sachsenring is a circuit that Marc Marquez has never lost at. And of course, it's all left-hand corners. There's only 3 right-hand corners. So Mark's biggest issue shouldn't be as prominent at the German Grand Prix.
Yeah.
So that we will see. I think when we get to Sachsenring, we will see the Marc Marquez back. But we just need to give him time. He's not going to win the championship this year. There was a thought that maybe if he came back super strong straight away, then he could still do it. And I certainly believed that. But it's not going to happen now. And I think we need to give Mark time. Crashing out of the Italian Grand Prix wasn't great because what he really needed was miles, and he didn't get that. But yeah, Mark just needs time. But Honda will hope that he doesn't take too much time because they really need him to be fit again to properly push this bike and find out what's wrong with this bike, because the Honda riders this year are really struggling.
Yeah, that's a point of contention amongst the Japanese manufacturer, because sometimes I believe the narrative that it was prominent in the Marc Marquez era maybe after 2015 or 16 when he really started dominating. It was, the Honda bike, unrideable. Even the best riders in the world, no, Marc can only do it. And maybe that was true because Marquez really put his soul in that bike. He said, I want this bike to be the best for me. And sometimes it sucks because if you lose, if you fall 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, the eighth time will be the one that will ruin your right hand, and that's something that if you are Repsol Honda, if you're Alberto Puig, you're okay. We're screwed. The guy that made this bike is not here anymore. These guys don't feel as much suited as he was before his injury. So now Repsol Honda had to really adapt to the riders that had on its hand. Alex, Paul Espargaro for this year, of course, and all this, and Stefan Brandl, who I believe he's a phenomenal test rider, and not only test rider, a rider as well, a full-time rider. I believe he would be very good. But it's pretty sketchy if as a team, not only Repsol Honda, any team decides, okay, we have the best rider. We believe that if we give him everything, he will make this bike the best bike for him. It's pretty risky because they are riders, and riders fall. Unfortunately, they get injuries. Unfortunately, they lose Grand Prix. He lost a whole season. That's pretty precarious, and I believe no other team in MotoGP, I'm sorry, I spoke Greek. At least in at least in the I believe 2002 to 2021 era, the last 20 years, has ever done it. We have the best rider, we will give him the bike to do whatever he wants with it. Yamaha tried to consolidate both Jorge and Valentino. Honda tried with Stoner and Danny. Now, Marquez really had his own bike, and now he's back and says, where's my bike? That's understandable.
Yeah, Honda's job is not easy, and Honda's always had a bit of a difficult time with its other riders because, if you look back for the last 10 years, you look at the guys that have been on that bike. Pedrosa had a very different riding style to anyone because he was so small. Casey Stoner could ride anything, and then they got Marc Marquez, so they've been developing a bike for really unique riders. And of course, not everyone can ride like Casey Stoner or Marc Marquez. But what are Honda to do? Do they develop a bike that everyone can ride, but maybe Marc can't ride it as well? Well, the guy's a 6-time world champion. They're in such a precarious situation because they know they need to build a better bike for everyone. They know that because if you look at Ducati, you look at, certainly last year with Yamaha, with Petronas SRT, and even KTM last year as well, that they've got 2 or 3 guys that can fight for good positions, whereas Honda, they've got good guys on the bike, but they've only got one guy that's really capable of winning races. They don't have anyone else right now who can pick up the pieces if Marc isn't able to win.
Yeah.
But, they can't do too much to the bike to change the feeling that Marc has, because why would you? He's, like I say, he's a 6-time world champion. Why would you do, Mercedes aren't going to build a Formula One car that will suit Valtteri Bottas instead of Lewis Hamilton. So why if you're Honda, why would you do that why would you make your bike not what Marc Marquez wants? Of course, the problem was last year that they were forced to make the bike a bit more friendly for Alex Marquez, for Taka Nakagami. Poor Cal Crutchlow was injured for most of the year, but to be fair to Cal, over the past few years, he's been the only other rider other than Marc to get the bike to the podium.
Oh yeah, of course.
But Honda looked like they made a step forward last year, and Alex Marquez got a couple of podiums. Taka was quite strong consistently. So it looked like things were going to be a bit better this year, regardless of, when Marc was going to come back. So they seem to have gone in the wrong direction. I don't know if that's maybe they just haven't made the biggest step forward compared to some of their rivals, or their new chassis. Or one of the issues seems to be that it certainly seems to stem from the engine, which of course they can't touch this year.
Yeah,
they've got a lot of problems with engine braking, a lot of inertia problems into the corners, which was an issue last year, but it just seems to be a bigger problem now. There's only so much they can do. They can try with the electronics a little bit to fix that, but but they are trying. They're trying a lot of chassis, and the biggest problem that the likes of Paul Espargaro has right now is that until last weekend at Mugello, not all the Honda riders were doing different things. They were trying different chassis. They had different parts. They had different setups, and Espargaro was really unhappy at this. He said at Jerez, he said, "Look, I can't tell Honda what's good or not because I haven't ridden last year's bike. But what we really need is everyone working on the same bike in the same direction." It seems Honda is now kind of doing that. But it's a process that will take a long, long time, probably the whole season, for Honda to understand. And then, of course, next year when they can build a bike with a brand new engine and stuff like that, then hopefully the lessons they've learned this year will be applicable to the 2022 bike. But I mean, I'm quite surprised that Paul Espargaro has struggled as much, and I think that should be a good indication to people just how difficult this bike is at the moment, because Honda signed Paul because they knew he could ride this Honda. He had an aggressive riding style. They saw what he did on the KTM, because the KTM needed a similar style to the Honda to get the best out of it. They saw how much development work he did. But so you can understand why they signed him, but he's struggled because he hasn't had a lot of time on the bike. Mm-hmm. Each weekend is different. Like we said, the Honda's program is different.
Yeah.
So, I am surprised that things haven't worked out as I thought they probably would for Paul. But I think it's a matter of time. I think once Paul understands the bike more, he will be able to start pulling out better results. We see Taka's had some good races this year. Jerez was a really good weekend for him, although he did use the 2020 chassis, which he isn't using currently. So, but there is potential in the bike, but it's just Honda have got a lot of work to do. But like I say, the biggest problem they have is that as soon as Marc Marquez is fit again, a lot of their problems won't matter, because Marc will be able to ride around them.
Absolutely, he'll outride them, and of course you don't want to put your best rider in the position that he has to really outride stuff that are a real issue, because first things first, it's a waste of time sometimes. If you're fighting for the championship, you don't want to fight the bike as well. Secondly, I think that this will follow the pattern that really made Jorge leave. And maybe Paul will leave as well. The fact that once Marc is right on spot, he'll annihilate the guys. He'll really make them look very poor, and they're not.
I don't know about that. I mean, Lorenzo's biggest issue was he just couldn't ride the bike. He was
unmotivated as well sometimes.
Well, after a couple of big crashes, Lorenzo did lose his motivation a lot, and he just wasn't happy, and he was struggling on the bike, which is, you can understand. Paul is a different character. I spoke to Paul at the end of last season, and I said to him, like, a lot of people think you're going to go to Honda and you're going to get absolutely destroyed. And he said, well, I look forward to going to Honda to fight against Marc, because that's how I'm going to prove myself as a top MotoGP rider.
Yeah.
Is if I can go and learn from Marc and maybe even beat Marc. So I think Paul's mentality is good, and he knows once things click, he will be able to ride this bike. I think, you look back to the Qatar races, the results might not reflect it, but he was on podium pace in both of those Grand Prix. So fair enough, they've done a lot of testing at Qatar, but he can, when things are right, it does look like he is suited to this bike. It's just that now that we've got to Europe and we've got to more normal circuits, we're seeing that this 2021 Honda has a lot of problems, and even Honda themselves have admitted that they've got problems, which is quite unusual from Honda.
Yeah, from Alberto Puig as well, as a manager style kind of guy. He doesn't want to be really. He doesn't want to show his hands. Maybe his hand. I'm sorry. Maybe. Sorry. Maybe he's forced to justify Marc's slump as well, because if you remember last year, I'm sure you do. Alberto was like, "Oh, Marc, he's fine. He'll race. He's fine." And then Marc was not fine. Of course, he was not fine. I don't think anyone believes that his arm got worse after a fucking window. We can curse on the episode. We don't have a. We may have a rating. Maybe I have to say to my producer to put it on explicit. But sometimes, sometimes you have to justify as a manager the fact that none of your riders really shine this year. And it was pretty. I don't think we touched this, and that's how we will close the Marc chapter. I don't think we mentioned that it was pretty deceptive, the 7th place when he got back. It was pretty deceptive, the fact that he was really fighting with the guys in the top 10. I believe it hyped up his prospects for the next races, and then he had the 9th place, then the 7th place. Of course, after the 9th place, the second race he had, he was 7th, and then poof, for two crashes, two falls at least, not crashes. Unfortunately, he lost the front of the bike. Yesterday he crashed with Brad, and then the weather caught him out in Le Mans. So yeah, maybe that's the reason that Marc really makes his return disappointing in an aspect. But after that, I mean, we have to be realistic. The guy was out for almost a year. He lost so much track time. You get a bit out of form when you're not riding, and of course you don't have any substitute for riding a bike. It's not like a car that you can go up to a simulator like Assetto Corsa or something and try to feel your way around. Yeah, you can't do that. Even the best guys in the world don't have an equipment that can emulate the feeling of the bike. That's why he got in Barcelona with a street bike, and I'm air quoting here, to feel his way around. Yeah, no, it was not a street bike, dude. It was just a racing bike with some street legal stuff, like turning cyclists and stuff. So yeah, I mean, that's Marc for you, and it's my opinion that he will bounce back. And if not this year, because okay, Honda is not that good, maybe 2022. After all, he's only 28. He'll be 29. Vale is 42 for God's sake, and he's still here. So I believe Marc is pretty young in comparison.
Yeah, for sure, Marc. Well, I think now 2021 is a season for Marc just to get back up to fitness.
Yeah,
and then 2022 is when things will be back to normal. But things will be back to normal for Marc in 2022, and hopefully things will be back to normal for the rest of us in 2022 as well.
Yeah, oh my God, these Zoom meetings are pretty good for us. Greek maybe journalists, because and one colleague of mine, I used to work with him in totalracing.gr, Dimitris Vourdas. He's a MotoGP correspondent as well, and it's difficult for us to be at circuits, but of course it would be amazing if we could more often in a better situation, non-COVID situation, of course.
yeah, for sure.
Let's close it out with everyone's favorite here in Greece, Vale. I told you before I don't know, did I say it on air or not? MotoGP was put on the map for Greece with Vale. Maybe we have an affection with Italian things. We loved Ferrari from the beginning. People here in Greece are avid fans of Scuderia and Michael Schumacher to this day. Vale is special for my people, and I believe Vale is special in any kind of situation. The guy has this aura, the prestige that no other rider in the grid has, but that prestige really hurts him when he's down in 17th and 18th in every Grand Prix this year, or almost every Grand Prix this year.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about Valentino. To be honest, it's it's tough to watch. To see this guy, this 9-time world champion, this legend of not just MotoGP, of motorsport, of world sport. There are few athletes in any given discipline that transcend their entire sport. Michael Schumacher was one of them. Michael Jordan was another one. Someone like Lionel Messi's another.
Yeah, of course.
And then you've got Valentino. You don't have to be a MotoGP fan or even a racing fan to know who Valentino Rossi is. Which makes, like you say, it makes what we're seeing right now, this really bad form for Rossi, all the more difficult to watch, because it shouldn't be this bad. But and it doesn't help that he's on the same bike as Fabio Quartararo, and look at what Fabio's doing on the bike versus what Valentino's doing on the bike. And you can't really use the excuse of but he's in a satellite team, because he's got factory support, and this is a great satellite team. This was a satellite team that fought for the championship last year. They very nearly won it on a 2019 bike, courtesy of Franco Morbidelli. This is Valentino's got a great package, and he's got a great team around him, and it's just not working for him. And I think a lot of some of the results we're seeing, like him finish 17th, qualifying 20th and 21st. What we're seeing there is just how close MotoGP is, because his speed isn't a million miles away. He's a few tenths off. But if you're a few tenths off in MotoGP now, you're not getting into the top 10. It's as simple as that. Whereas if this was 10 years ago, Rossi would be still finishing 6th, 5th in races, and we'd be thinking, what a hero, 42, and he's still finishing top 5. It's not the case now, and honestly, I don't really see... Well, I don't see, first of all, how he can justify continuing his career. I certainly don't see how Yamaha or even Petronas SRT can justify it. We know Valentino has performance criteria in his contract he must meet this year for there to be any discussions about a deal for next year. And I honestly can't imagine he's anywhere near hitting those targets.
I don't think so, and I haven't seen even a glimpse of the contract. Even God has some boundaries and some limits that he has to fulfill, some goals to fulfill. But I think Vale can't. Believe it's a bug. Racing is a bug, and I believe Vale cannot heal himself from that bug, and it's really difficult when everyone around him is a yes man, and it's like, yeah, sure, continue, yeah, sure, we can give you the 2021 bike on Petronas, yeah, sure, do that. Someone has to say, and I believe that's the contract, someone has to say, okay, but you have to finish, say 10th, say 15th, even get a point or something, man. And now he has 15 points, of course, courtesy of some near 10 place finishes, 10th in the last race, of course, and 12th in the Premier, and 11th the race before Mugello. But I think Vale is in a precarious position. First things first, I don't think his team is very legitimate as we talk right now. We haven't seen any glimpse of real sponsorship. The Arabian guys even don't know what we're talking about. Ducati, of course, is ready to supply him with bikes for his team, VR46 team. It's weird. Vale is in a weird position, in terms of riding and in terms of future as a team owner in the MotoGP.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see. I honestly don't think Rossi will. He's not enjoying things right now, so I can't see him really wanting to continue. I think he will retire at the end of this year. As with his team, I mean, things have gone a bit quiet on that front in terms of we haven't really heard anything about structure or sponsorship. Only that we've been told that yes, there is a deal with with Saudi Arabian oil, and the Ducati is close
Yeah,
to agreeing a deal to supply VR46
all unconfirmed, of course.
and the Grassini team with bikes. Unconfirmed at the moment, but it looks like there will be announcements soon.
Oh, okay.
So we believe that everything is going forward. I think we will know more about the VR46 team when they've signed a contract with a manufacturer. So we'll hope they think maybe in the next. Valentino said at the weekend that maybe in the next 10 days we'll know something, but we heard that at Le Mans, so we don't know
And
yet.
it's been 2 weeks, so yeah.
Yeah, so things are moving in the right direction, but yeah, I don't see him continuing his racing career, and I think with his team coming into MotoGP next year, it's sort of the perfect time for him to call it quits. I know this isn't the season he would have wanted to end it on, but that's the risk you run when you extend your career for as long as he has. That there's no guarantee that you're going to go out on top, and in reality, very very few people ever do.
Yeah, Casey, maybe.
Casey, yeah, I guess he's a bit of a special case because he's sort of. He quit while he was on top, essentially.
Yeah. And he said, I'm out, even before his time came, in terms of age, the other issues he had.
Well, yeah, I mean, Casey was only 27 when he made that announcement. He could have raced for... Of course, he's had some health issues over the past couple of years. But,
oh, yeah, of course. But
even then, Casey would have been racing for... Had he not made that decision, he still would have raced for a good few more years, and I think Casey still would have been very competitive.
Yeah, of course. The guy was a beast in his good day.
Yeah, but I think, I think the championship, honestly, has outgrown Valentino Rossi. Yes, there will be a lot of fans that might not watch MotoGP next year if Rossi isn't racing. The fact that there's a VR46 team will go some way to safeguarding the Rossi factor for MotoGP.
Yeah.
And let's not forget how important Valentino was to the popularity of MotoGP, and without doubt he is a legend. But look at the racing we've been having over the past couple of years. Look at the people who've been winning races. Look at the battles that we've been having. None of them, or a very very few of them, have featured Valentino Rossi. And did we really miss him in those battles? I think back to Silverstone 2019 with Alex Rins and Marc Marquez. I certainly didn't bother me that Valentino wasn't involved in that battle.
Yeah.
I think back to Austria last year, Austria over the past few years, I think the championship, we've come to the point where I think Valentino's outstayed his welcome as a rider, and I think the championship's ready to move on from the Valentino Rossi era.
Luis, thank you so much for coming to my podcast.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for asking me on.
I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Absolutely.
Of course, you had the Autosport podcast published today. Thanks, Lappers, with Oriol.
Yeah, yes, we did. Yes, very busy day of podcasting.
Yeah, I get it. So I have to conclude. Maybe I'll speak a bit of Greek to conclude. So don't freak out. I don't think you know any words in Greek, right? I mean,
no, unfortunately, that's a language I'm yet to grasp. But no. to be fair, I'm still learning English. So
okay. So first things first. Luis has been a pleasure to hear, and of course, I will leave his Twitter on the episode notes, so you can find him, follow him, and follow his writings and his podcasting adventures. What else? Of course, Oversteer podcast. You can hear it in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, of course, in half.fm. I will not speak Greek. I'll keep it English. I know pretty good English. I'm fine. So, thank you for listening to this special episode of the Oversteer podcast. I'm Dimitris Bizas. See you next Monday after the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and have a nice week. Have a nice June month of June. It's been a pretty wild year, and any Greek that listening this podcast will be happy to hear that summer is around. Thank you. See you next week.